Hello, my YouTube family. This is the OG Crypto New Jack coming at you with some juicy news today. But before we begin, let me say I am not a financial advisor. Anything you see or hear in this video is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered as financial advice. Remember to do your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making investment decisions. Okay, so we're going to begin taking a look at the total crypto market cap, and it's at $1.11 trillion. It is up 0.5%. Coming in at number one is Bitcoin at 26,714. Coming in at number two is Ethereum at 1,729. And our beloved XRP is at number 6 at 49 cents. Taking a look at crypto bubbles, it looks like the top gainer is Sui, up 8.5%. And KuCoin's token looks like the biggest loser, down 9.4%. Taking a look at the fear and greed index is neutral at 47. And we're going to start here with Cowboy Crypto. Shout out to him. This report listing XRP as a virtual currency by Sullivan and Cromwell, which is directly from the IMF website. And this is important. Tell you why. This is Sullivan and Cromwell's report dated September 26, 2018, a little more than 3 months after the Hinman speech was given. Sullivan and Cromwell goes on to describe XRP as being a virtual currency in their report. And who worked there? Oh, let's find out. Shout out to Ashley Prosper. She writes, Clayton joined Sullivan and Cromwell full-time in October 1995 and became a partner in January 2001, where he was a member of the firm's management committee and co-head of the firm's corporate practice until 2017 when he became the SEC chair. A few years later, in August of 2020, Sullivan and Cromwell helped Consensus acquire JP Morgan's enterprise blockchain platform, Corium, and as part of the deal, JP Morgan made an investment in Consensus. JP Morgan will continue to use Corium to run the Interbank Information Network, a payments network that involves more than 300 banks. At the same time, it would continue to its communications with the SEC about Ripple and/or XRP. A few months later, the lawsuit was dropped on Ripple, Ethereum's and therefore Consensus' biggest competition. I'll leave it right there, but that paints a very clear picture. Moving on from there, again, shout out to Ashley Prosper. On Friday, the 11th of October, 2019, the CFTC, FinCEN, and the SEC put out a statement about digital assets stating that it is the facts and circumstances underlying an asset, activity, or service, including its economic reality and the use, that determines the general categorization of an asset, the specific regulatory treatment of the activity involving the asset, and whether the persons involved are financial institutions for purposes of the BSA. So unless Gary Gensler has analyzed the vast majority of tokens to determine the specific facts and circumstances surrounding a particular asset, he is 100% wrong to paint crypto as multi-securities with that broad brush of his. And that is exactly correct. So this is basically saying that the underlying asset in the SEC versus Ripple, talking about XRP, is not a security, but they went ahead and said that XRP, no matter who's selling it anywhere around the world, it's a security. And I'm glad they did that because they can't win with that argument. Moving on, shout out to Mr. Huber. He puts out, "Are you effing kidding me?" And this is very interesting. I mean, the Twitter sleuths are just uncovering everything left and right. And what is he specifically referring to? I'm going to just highlight this picture. This is the story of plug-and-play fintech that started with a small Bitcoin meetup of our headquarters in Sunnyvale, California. This meetup turned into our fintech program launched in 2014. And who do we see here? Vitalik Buterin. This is the story of plug-and-play fintech. Why is that important? Let's move on. Has anyone looked into plug and play in reference to Eastgate in China? Seems interesting that Bill Hinman's family working there. Well, look at here. What do we got here? We have Nate Hinman, which I believe is Bill Hinman's son. He's a senior director, enterprise tech at Plug and Play. Do you guys see the connections here? We have Bill Hinman, when we learned from his emails that he was going to call Vitalik Buterin to get his ideas on how the Ethereum network works before his speech. Of course, he's going to call Vitalik Buterin when his son and Buterin were working together in Plug and Play. The connections run deep, and the corruption as well was just as deep. And speaking about corruption and Bill Hinman, we had John Dean who put this thing out. Here's Hinman's answers when he asks if he knows Attorney Lowell Ness from Perkins Coie. It's ringing a faint bell, but not really. I couldn't pick him out of a crowd. On March 26, 2018, Lowell Ness sent Hinman a memo in a safe harbor and met him March 28, 2018. So we already know he lied once under perjury when he said if he spoke to anyone outside the SEC, and he said no, he didn't, but he did in fact speak with Vitalik Buterin. We all know that to be the truth, so he lied there. And here, John Dean goes on to say 2 days after Hinman received the paperwork in safe harbor from Lowell Ness, he met with Lowell Ness and others. Ness said the Hinman speech tracked the paperwork. By the way, there are identical phrases from Lowell Ness's paperwork that appear in the first draft and even in the final draft of the speech. So here you have Bill Hinman on two lies. So, I mean, this is perjury. When you are being deposed, you have to say the truth. And if you are found to be not saying the truth, this is, I'm not going to sugarcoat this, he 100% lied. And when you do that in a deposition, that's called perjury, and you can go to jail, because that is a felony. You can do 1 year in jail for that, as Martha Stewart found out. So the wheels, in my opinion, are coming off. Mr. Huber again, it was always breathtaking to see how absurd the fact is that the SEC wanted to make consensus the regulator for crypto and at the same time sues Ripple. Lubin mentions all the classic securities, business, crowdfunding, business funding models, lending, everything except payments. And listen to him describing the consensus business model as a pyramid scheme. I'm not going to play the video, but that is, it goes on to pretty much say exactly what Mr. Huber depicted. Here we have, shout out to Digital Perspective. It says it's a must listen. If crypto is going to win, SEC Ripple has to go all the way to the Supreme Court, and that's, in this gentleman's opinion. I'll play it now.
So I think the Ripple case, like all of these cases, they all do boil down to the same question, which is, are these things securities? And so I think it will have really significant precedential value. That being said, I don't know if they're all consolidated into the same court, and so you could easily have split courts. Yeah, that's number one. Number two, no matter what happens, these decisions are getting appealed.
For sure.
So I think we're in for a pretty long road here.
Do you think the end of the road is the Supreme Court?
I think so. Look, I think there's remember, the Supreme Court doesn't have to hear anything.
Right.
So unless there's a circuit split, not to do like civil procedure on people, and I'm not a lawyer, right? But unless two senior federal courts, so district, circuit, Supreme, unless two different circuit courts come to different positions, there's actually no obligation for the Supreme Court to hear anything. And so I think that it will go all the way up to the lip of the Supreme Court. Now, whether the Supreme Court decides to let the Howey test stand, or whether it decides that it needs to hear this one in that context, I think is TBD. And the reason I think it's important to note this is that the Howey test is pretty well written.
Yeah.
Right. And it's been pretty flexible, and it's been applied to a lot of different cases. And each time the Supreme Court has mostly decided not to rewrite it. So if the Supreme Court were to decide, hey, we kind of like the Howey test, it's in some ways, like, it's worth reading. It's kind of a very articulate, flexible, strong framework. And courts, even if you just restate it, you're going to restate it with different words. If you restate it with different words, you're actually creating new law.
Yeah, you're changing it, right?
And so that's where I don't know where this will go. I think for the crypto side to win, it will have to go to the Supreme Court. Because I think if the Supreme Court, if let's say a circuit court decides to rewrite the Howey test in some way so that so many crypto assets are not securities, I actually think what will happen is the Supreme Court will not let that stand. I think they will, decide to kind of rewrite it. If, on the other hand, the SEC wins at the circuit court, then there is an option for the Supreme Court to basically say, well, the Howey test is good law. Circuit court applied it. We don't need to rewrite it at the Supreme Court level.
All right, that's his take. My opinion is this, and this is what only matters to the vast majority of the XRP holders and to exchanges. All we really care about is what happens in the secondary market. And in my opinion, that is not going to be going to the Supreme Court. In my opinion, the judge is going to rule on that. It's just too much going on with John Dean and the 75,000 plus in his class action lawsuit and the amicus brief that he filed. Also, you have all the other ones that were filed that say that they use XRP not as an investment. So the judge has to address that, and I believe she will. And maybe the other areas of the case proceed to a higher court, whether it's the appellate and Supreme Court. But as far as secondary sales, which is really all that matters to us, that's going to be decided by Judge Torres, in my opinion. I'm not an attorney, I do have some knowledge in this area, but I do, in my opinion, believe she will rule on that, making XRP not a security and being able to be traded, bought and sold on exchanges, and for XRP holders to do as they wish with it because it is not going to be deemed as a security in the secondary market. Okay, so moving on from there. Shout out to James Rule. He puts out the UK Lords approve Financial Services and Markets Bill, which applies to crypto stable coins. Here it says the Financial Services and Markets Bill stands to recognize crypto as a regulated activity and stable coins as a means of payment under existing laws. So everyone else is going to act together except here in the US. This is an article from CoinDesk. JP Morgan says the release of the Hinman documents in the SEC Gov versus Ripple case is a boost to Ether and will likely trigger a race for decentralization in the crypto market. Talk about putting a spin on something unbelievable. You have these documents that come out that at minimum show the unfaithful allegiance to the law that was going on in the SEC. But it also, at worst, can show outright corruption when you have government officials meeting up with the Ether people, Vitalik Buterin, Consensus, JP Morgan, and making rules to help Ether and crush another one. And getting paid to do it. That's actually called corruption. So at best, it was their, I guess, inept inability to create laws, and they were confused. And at worst is outright corruption. And they want to spin it as something positive for Ether. I got to tell you, well, that is one spin that I didn't see coming. Unbelievable. Okay, moving on. Shout out to Payment Infrastructure News. They say Breaking Bank of England has today successfully migrated CHAPS, UK's high-value payment systems, to ISO 222. Executive Director of Payments Victoria Clayton said the introduction of the ISO 222 financial messaging standard marks a major milestone. So that's good to see. Everyone, all the chips are falling in place. Okay, shout out to Mac Attack. Says Top Exchange CEO says a win for Ripple is a victory for crypto, and everyone in the space now believes that to be the case. It says here, Mike Belshi, the CEO of California-based crypto exchange BitGo, has thrown his weight behind the leading blockchain company, supporting Ripple and saying it's a big win for the entire crypto space, which I agree. Here we have another article, Mr. Man, Mexico and Peru to follow Brazil's real-time payment footsteps. So that is good to see. Like I said, the entire world is moving forward in this crypto space while the US is being left behind. Shout out to Jack the Ripper. He puts out, boom, Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta called XRP as a wholesale settlement coin. So again, things are just falling into place. Shout out to John E. Dean. BlackRock has $11 million on trillion assets under management. Fidelity 4.5 trillion. And so now it's official. BlackRock and Fidelity has put in for a spot Bitcoin ETF. So now, as you can see, the institutional players are getting themselves ready for the next bull run, which is going to be sparking at or around the Bitcoin halving next year in March, I believe, March or early April. And moving on, and last but not least, shout out to Crypto Aries. She has this article here. So just in case you guys weren't aware, there is a thing called the Hinman test. I don't know where it came from because the Supreme Court didn't put it out, but apparently there is a Hinman test. Let me play the tape.
So I work for a venture fund, and we talk to a lot of, let's call them token issuers, that inform me that they are planning on passing the Hinman test, which is Hinman test, which is...
Yeah, look at him laughing, chuckling, and having a great old time, giving a thumbs up. Everybody's having a great old time.
You know...
I'm going to stop it there. But let me just say, something tells me at some point in the future, I don't think Bill Hinman is going to be laughing and chuckling as much as he was in that video right there. I just have a strange suspicion that that's going to be the case because if I remember correctly, Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple, and Stuart Alderati, the CLO, are making sure that an investigation gets initiated in regards to I'm just going to call it the corruption going on in the SEC when they got sued. So hopefully that is the case. And then maybe we can wipe the smile off all these people's faces. But okay, fam, that's going to do it for today's video. If you found this video to be helpful, would you please smash a like and subscribe? I would really appreciate it. And it doesn't cost you anything. Thank you much in advance. And in the words of Snoop Dogg, keep your mind on your money and your money on your mind. Peace out, man.